Welcome to PRSL Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Rolando, and we're on episode 356, an update episode.
Yes, we love our update episodes. We have an update episode every other week. So every Wednesday, we have an episode that drops. It's at least an hour long, sometimes quite a bit longer than that. And the episodes are every other week. One is an update episode where we talk about the things that are happening in our life, reselling wise, things maybe some random stories, things we've sourced. We talk about what's going on in the reselling world in general. We talk about some sweet Bolos, things you should be on the lookout for to flip on eBay or Amazon or locally. And then on the other Wednesday, so every other week, other than that, we do a themed episode where we talk about something that maybe is important in reselling specifically, or like a topic that is going to help you, maybe about shipping or something like that. So make sure you are subscribed, whether it's on podcast or on YouTube, so that you don't miss any of our content, because our content covers a lot of stuff reselling wise. So you want to make sure you are subscribed. Hit that bell notification if you're on YouTube. But no matter how you're listening, subscribe. Make sure you're listening to our podcast because we got a lot going on. And our updates are really, I think, probably like our flagship episodes, right? It's like the one where we really get into the reselling world, reselling news, all the things people are looking for.
No, agreed. And it's I wish we could do update episode every week, and I think we'll get to that eventually. Again, we used to do that. Remember, we would do like update and theme, but in time, because right now things are slow. So it's kind of nice that we have an update episode just once a week, or once every 2 weeks. Because I honestly, right now with eBay, how sluggish things have been. Even sourcing has been kind of off. But here's the reason why: it's not because sales aren't happening. It's not because there isn't anything to source. I know for myself, it's just I've slowed down. I have slowed down. I noticed that today. Right now you probably can't tell on the video, but I'm all sunburned, which yes, that can happen to me. And I spent all day today with my son at SeaWorld, and then the other day I was at the movies for 3 to 5 hours, and it was jam packed. Like, I haven't seen a movie theater that packed. It was one of those where you're next to awkward, sweaty people, and I'm the awkward, sweaty guy too. And so you're in this theater together, but it was great. So I haven't been doing as much reselling, and so it gave me perspective today, because I'm like, man, sales are not coming through. Things are kind of rough. It's late July, but of course, I just haven't been as active in reselling. And I want to encourage all of you, if things are slow, really, be introspective. Think about, are things slow possibly because of me too? Like the fact that, right now you're like, the other day you could have, gone and sourced, or you could have listed, and instead you're like, you know what? I think I'm going to go to the beach today, or I'm going to go to the park, or I got invited to a birthday party. The other day I was at a birthday party at Trampoline Park for like 6 hours. Right. And I missed out on some of my garage sales. I missed out on packing things and shipping them out Saturday. And it's just because, summer just gets busy. So think about that, because I really wonder if all those videos and people are like, things are so slow, if people really took the chance to take a look at and inventory how their days have been in the last 2 weeks. I think a lot of people would be surprised and realize they're not grinding as hard as they would be if it was Q3 or Q4. And so, talking about catching up, sales for me have been all over the place. I don't know what's going on. eBay makes 0 sense to me. Even though things have slowed down for me, I'm still listing. I'm not listing about 30 a day. I've been listing sometimes 10 to 20, sometimes 20 to 30, but it hasn't been consistent. But I got to tell you, there's days on eBay where I'm making, 1K or close to 1K. And then there's other days where I'm making like $80. And I can't explain it. There's zero rhyme or reason. And it's a little bit frustrating because, one thing you realize after doing eBay for a while as a full-time person is that eBay is a grind. Years ago, there's a lot of social media resellers that left reselling. And they left like about 2019, right before everything got crazy. And one of the arguments that they made was the problem with eBay is they felt like they could never take a break. Like they always had to be doing something, right? Even if they're on vacation, they had to take messages, right? Unless they completely shut down their store. But most individuals always have to do that with eBay. So if you're new to reselling, you're thinking about going full time, that's something you need to consider. that eBay is not passive. Mike and I have said that a lot, but eBay is not passive income. Sure, you can go on a trip and you'll come back, you'll have like $2,000 to $3,000 worth of sales to pack and everything. But during that whole trip, you still had to reply to people. You still had to, make sure that you're listening every once in a while or sending offers. Like there's a certain aspect of work that you always have to do with eBay. And so I've kind of been recognizing that. Also, I wanted to update everybody on the rugs. So I sent them to Sotheby's as pictures and everything. And it was kind of tragic because they tell you, oh, it's going to be about 2 weeks. But if things get really busy, maybe 6 weeks for us to get back to you. 12 hours later, I got back rejection notices. So I was like, wow, they must have just, I automatically now, why do I think I got rejected? I will say when I filled out the form, it sounded kind of sketch. I'm sending pictures of these Persian rugs and they're saying, how did you acquire these? And I'm putting moving sale. How much did you pay for these? Well, reality is I actually paid maybe like $30 per rug, right? Because I got like 10 rugs for like $300. So I even put 300 just because, but I thought this must look sketch to somebody that sees this really nice rug. And somebody saying that they got us some random moving sale for like $300, like that doesn't sound right. Because I told you guys before, like the receipts of the rug cleaning, they cost about $500 a piece to just clean. And so I got them for less than the cost of cleaning. So to me, I don't think is that they're valuable. I think it's just that they were just like, yeah, I don't know about this. Don't know if we want to.
You really think so though? Like, cause like if somebody were to find, for instance, whatever, like you hear the stories all the time. Someone finds a lost Van Gogh painting in an attic somewhere.
Okay.
And,
I see what you're saying.
And they say like, hey, I paid $10 for this. Someone's not gonna say like, you found this for $10 in someone's attic. It's not real. I'm not even gonna look at it. Like, I don't know if that's like a guaranteed reason why they would reject it. So
okay,
I'm not trying to take it away from you, but
no. I think that's a very valid point. And so, I don't know. I do know one of my good friends, what he did is he Googled Pawn Stars and rug expert in like one line, and it came up with like all these people that have been on Pawn Stars that like have done the assessments, for items. Whenever Rick's like, I got a friend that's into whatever, and the guy shows up and does an assessment and goes, oh, you thought it was $500? That's actually worth $10,000. One of those individuals is in San Diego. So I'm going to reach out to her. I'm going to give it one more time. And if I don't get anything good, like that it's super valuable, I'm just going to put it on auction and we'll just run with it. I can't complain about it. I've already 3x my money that I spent. No, more than 3x, 4x my money that I spent that day. The stereo equipment alone, I sold for about $700, and then I sold some other like camera pieces and so on. So I've already done well with what I picked up, but I just want to check one more time. So, anyways, that's my update. I got some random stories later on, but yeah, sales all over the place. I've been listing garage sales. I'll share that with a random story, but garage sales it's interesting. I think I shared this before, but I feel it's just a lot of resellers trying to offload their inventory. I would say half of the garage sales I've gone to this summer have been other resellers or like swap meet people. Like for whatever reason, they didn't sell things at the swap meet and they decided to do a garage sale. So how are things going for you, man?
Yeah, I mean, things have been pretty good. I went to the bins again, spent some more time at the bins, and yeah, man, what an experience. So couple of things. I love the fact that our listeners and our viewers, or even people in the Discord, oftentimes give us like advice or suggestions or encouragement. And it's amazing how many times the things that people say in those are like really helpful because, there are a lot of negative people and sometimes we get negative comments on stuff. But for someone to take the time to like offer some advice or an encouragement, a lot of times it means it's coming from like a place of like experience or a place of like, genuine care. And so one of the things somebody said last time I went to the bins and I talked about it on the podcast, I mentioned, I guess I'm going to have to become a clothes seller now. And that wasn't really something I'm super excited about. I mean, clothes are, it's one of those things where I think there's a lot of benefits to clothes and selling clothes, and there's downsides to it. But I just don't know enough of the brands. And at the bins, like just digging through shirt and then pants and then literally it's pretty gross. It's like, I don't understand why it even makes it in, but there's like bras and there's like underwear and there's like all kinds. I'm like, how is this
Gloves or
even
no
in this
gloves?
bin? Yeah, I mean, I
Gloves
guess
or no
so.
gloves?
But the problem, even that though, like, so there's benefit of wearing like gloves if I wore latex gloves, but then the problem too is like sometimes you want to feel the fabric, like when you're digging through
That's why I was
things.
asking.
Yeah, so I didn't wear gloves. I don't know if it's. I think the grossness maybe outweighs the like. Okay, is this good fabric or good material? But yeah, just like you find something and then you're trying to find, okay, where's the tag on this? And nope, don't want that. And you move it over to a pile and then someone else is throwing their pile into your pile. And it's not like you're just going through racks. So, but I mean, people are obviously finding things. In fact, I was there. I'm getting off track now. Hold on. Before I get to that though. So anyways, the encouragement that somebody gave me, and I think it was a YouTube comment, but it might've been on the Discord, was that just because it's what a lot of the people are doing at the bins and they're selling clothes, that I don't have to change my style of reselling because of that. That he is very successful at the bins just doing hard goods. I mean, there are hard good bins there. And so I was like, yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Like, I mean, maybe eventually I want to get into clothes just for space wise. It's easier kind of for storage. You can fit a lot of clothes in a tote, and hard goods take up a lot of space sometimes. Even shipping is a little bit easier with clothes. But yeah, so I mean, just that encouragement. In fact, when I went to the bins this last time, I did look through some clothes bins, but most of what I picked up was hard good stuff, and I still think I'm going to be really profitable with it. In fact, I kind of get why people do the bins, because I picked up some stuff that was relatively heavy. In fact, one of them is going to be a Bolo I'm going to be mentioning in a little bit. But there's some pretty heavy stuff, and the price was like, when they told me the price, I'm like, oh man, I'm getting out of here for $15. Like, that's crazy. I've got a ton of stuff in this cart. So I get why people go to the bins. I finally, the first time I went to the bins, I wasn't there long enough for them to bring out new bins. So I didn't get to experience that. But I mean, there's a lot of people sitting around waiting for bins to come out. So this time I was there when it happened. And so if you've never been there, man, it's interesting because people, they know where the empty spot is where they're going to be bringing the bins out. And so they line up in like a perimeter around it. And they bring out 4 bins at one time. At least that's what they did here. And they're all covered with like a white sheet. And then all the people kind of come up and they're standing around. They've kind of locked into their space. And then like the workers count down and then they pull the sheets off. And then people just, boom, they go into the bins. And I'm like, holy smokes. And I'm just watching this happen. And again, I'm thinking, okay, if I lock into my space and I got like a little, 3-foot bubble around me of like, this is my area, I could dig through piles. I mean, again, what's the chance that I'm going to be pulling like expensive clothing in that little pile at that one time? So it just doesn't, to me, the like waiting for stuff to come out. I mean, I get like that's probably where the diamonds in the rough come from, or where the like I just found like a $200 shirt that I'm going to be picking up for 20 cents. But I just don't know if it's worth it. Like to me, I don't mind looking through the hard goods or even looking through the scrap clothing bins, basically the stuff that people have already picked through. Because I imagine some people are there, they're not resellers, they're just looking for stuff for themselves. And then resellers still have, they make mistakes too. We often talk about thrift stores having weaknesses, but resellers have weaknesses too. Like a lot of times resellers will lock into like 3 or 4 brands, 10 brands, 20 brands, whatever it is. And that's what they're looking for. Like I picked up when I was at the bins, I don't even sell women's clothing usually. I mean, we've bought a lot in bulk before, but I picked up like a dress and a sweater, and I just kind of could tell by the fabric, like this seems like a really nice. So I saw the tag, I looked it up, and I'm like, oh, these sell for like $30-$40 used. Okay, well, I'm going to be spending like 40 cents on this. So sure, I'll pick it up. No big deal. But people, they left that, right? Like that was, I was only in the clothing bins for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, and I found some stuff that people missed. So, I think I'm definitely going to the bins a lot more often, but I was encouraged by what one of our listeners said is, I don't have to necessarily think I'm a clothes reseller now, or I need to be if I'm shopping at the bins. I could still do fine on the home goods stuff. And I did. I picked up quite a few things. I picked up like a vintage toy from the 50s that sell for like $40. And I, by weight, I probably paid like less than $1 for it. So there's definitely the hard goods there. So that was kind of cool. And then, so I didn't know whether to throw this into random story or just update, but I might as well bring it now. I guess it's kind of both.
Can I ask you a question before that?
Yeah, go for it.
So, any thoughts on doing Whatnot now that you're going to the bins and you're getting stuff for super cheap?
No, again, I don't think so. I mean, maybe in time, but again, it's one of those. If all I'm doing is like looking for Nike and Reebok and like certain brands, maybe, but clothes are so. It's just tough because I only know I know the main ones, the main like big ones that people resell. Again, those are the ones people are going to be snagging right away. But I feel like a lot of the money in clothing oftentimes comes in like the women's clothing. And there's so many brands, so many styles. And I'm just so out of my league in that kind of stuff.
No, so, I get it.
I don't know. I don't. Maybe in time. Maybe if every month I learn 2 or 3 new brands that sell really well and I'm finding them occasionally, and after a course of a year or two, like I've got a good repertoire, a good like knowledge base of clothing brands I could be picking up, I might move towards, I don't know if I'd do Whatnot, but I might start shifting more towards clothing. But that's in my 5 years of reselling, I would say that's probably been the category I've been the least experienced in. I mean, I've sold a ton of clothes, but it's like if you only know a handful of brands, right? Like I know my 10 or 15 brands of like items that I sell. And I don't know the thousands that there are and where they all rank in there. So I don't know if I'm there yet, but maybe eventually.
The only reason I bring that up is in the last few weeks I've been considering Whatnot again. And the only reason being is that if you can get your stuff for super cheap and you have a good following, it's a good turnaround, right? It's I mean, if you're paying pennies on the dollar, right, selling something that you picked up for what, 25 cents or let's say $1, and you flip it for 10 to 15 or 20 bucks, and you do that 30 times in one show, that's not bad. That's not bad at all, right? And you know, I've seen. I had a funny story. I'm not going to throw any names at all, but there's a lot of shoe sellers right now that are getting destroyed on Whatnot because they're going to like the Nike outlet or they're going to the Nike store and they're trying to flip their sneakers on Whatnot and they're losing money because, you know, they may get some kind of discount or whatever, but they're only making like $10 a shoe. And then if they get 2 or 3 shoes that they're losing 30 to 40 on each of them, then they're going to be in a net negative. But I think if you're able to get items for cheap, like I would think if I was nearby the bins where you were, like how far are the bins from you, Mike?
They're not far.
Like 15 minutes, maybe 30?
Yeah, I mean closer than 30, around 15, okay. Closer than that.
Yeah, for me it's like 45 minutes to an hour, and in traffic, like by the time I'm done doing the whole thing, it's like a 3 or 4 hour ordeal, right? And maybe it's not bad if I average out the cost, but I've gone to the bins here and they're nuts, and I just don't want to deal with that environment. But if I had one that was nearby, and every day I could spend 1 hour, and in that 1 hour pick up a good amount of clothes, and then go on Whatnot for another hour, and just spend another hour shipping, and I could get all that done in 3 hours every day and make a consistent, I don't know, $200 to $300 every day just doing that. Like that's not bad. You know, that's not bad. Just Monday through Friday, you develop, you know, you use our PHP Whatnot platform, and you just from 9 to 12 Monday through Fridays, you know, the Mike Pure Hustle auction. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out there.
Yeah, I don't think so though, in the sense of, on paper it sounds good. I think like you go to garage sales, like the ratio of like good stuff to garbage is much better than I feel like you go to the bins.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is like I can go to a garage sale and I'm gonna find, unless it's a total awful garage sale, I'm gonna find 2, 3, 4 items at that garage sale that I'm gonna be able to make $30+ on.
Yeah.
Right. Almost guaranteed. At the bins though, I feel like, at least with my knowledge base, and again, it could be different if you know more, but again, you're competing against so many people too, is in an hour there, I might be able to find 1 or 2 items that are like, oh, I could flip this for $30 or $40, this shirt or this pair of pants. So at that point, it doesn't become worth it to me, you know? So it's like if I was able to, yeah, get 10 items worth 20 to 30 bucks that I could flip in an hour, well, yeah, it's $200-300 in an hour, easy peasy, you know, and then you got to list it, whatnot auction. So then it ends up being like $50 an hour. So fine, that's fine. But if I'm spending an hour and I find one item that I can sell for $30 in the clothing section, because yeah, you might be able to find a ton. I could probably in an hour find like 10 to 20 items that I could sell and make like $5 net profit on
each of them.
On each of them, right? Like that.
Okay.
But then again, that's probably a little bit longer tail on eBay. I'm going to be taking pictures of them. I don't know if it's worth it at that point. So yeah, if I knew I could go in and pick even 4 or 5 items in an hour that I could sell for 30 plus bucks, yeah, I think it'd be worth it. But I just don't think with my current knowledge base, I'm there. At least on clothing, right? Maybe on hard goods, because I feel it was interesting. I saw they had pallets. Like I was kind of looking at them and I was like, okay, I'm not in the mood for a pallet right now of light fixtures. They had 3 different pallets of different light fixtures. And one of them was like specifically like bathroom. They had other bathroom like fixtures. And they were $150 each for the pallet. And there's probably like 40 plus light fixtures on each one. I'm like, all right, like this might be something that's worthwhile. Like you could be making, you know, 15 to 20 bucks each on these net profit. And if there's 40 of them here and you're paying 150 bucks. So there's definitely, I think, room in the hard goods section for some stuff. Yeah, I don't know if I'm there yet for clothing, but maybe, I don't know. Somebody who's more, there's definitely resellers there. And, you know, you don't want to like walk up to somebody and say like, hey, tell me how you make money here at the bins. Maybe I need to watch some people on eBay, but it just seems like a grind to me that I'm not willing to do. And like you said, like you go to a lot of garage sales too that feel like they're just other resellers. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some people that their gig is they go to the bins and it doesn't really matter what they pick up. They just pick up a ton of clothing and then they sell it for a couple dollars each at garage sales. $2 for shirts, $2 for pants, whatever. And they've picked them up.
Or they just sell out on Whatnot to other resellers.
No, I don't know. I mean, I think what people are selling on Whatnot though are still good quality things. Like it's not just garbage.
Yeah, let us know in the comments, everyone. Let us know about this discussion. What are your thoughts on this? I'm interested.
Yeah. All right. So my other thing, okay, embarrassing to say, but I had a defect. I had an item not in stock. I blame the move. I went through and I was pretty meticulous about making sure the items that I threw away and got rid of, that I took them off of eBay. And I'm like almost 100% sure that I only messed up on one item and that item happened to sell. Maybe there's 2 or 3 items I messed up on. I'm not going to, split hairs over that. But I did a pretty good job making sure anything that I donated or I threw away, I took off of eBay. And this one sold and I'm like, are you kidding me? I know for a fact I threw this away. And so I messaged the buyer. The buyer's not getting back. And the buyer made their account that day. So they made their account to buy that item. So I'm like, oh, I feel so bad for this person. Like I'm canceling their item, but I'm hoping like they probably don't even know to check their messages or like, so anyways, needless to say, I needed to do an item not in stock. And then that leads me down the rabbit hole of like, okay, how much is this defect going to hurt me? And I know that there's an aspect of it that's the algorithm of, if you've got negative reviews, you've got some defects that we kind of believe that it's probably going to have some impact on you in the algorithm in some ways. But eBay is very clear that if your store, so you got top rated seller, and then you got above average, and then you have below average. Like there's no like average. It's like it's above average or below average.
Below standard. There's no
below
standard.
Yeah, there's no standard.
Yeah.
So you're either above average or you're standard, below standard. And so I'm looking at like, what are all of the numbers? Because I never spent the time. I've never had to worry about that. Like, am I falling into an area that could drop me off? And then it got me like looking into like, man, this seems like pretty messed up. So if you have, the number is 2% on defects, and there's other numbers too for various categories, but just there's a general 2% defect that you can have if, and they look back at a whole year. If you don't do more than, I think it's like 1,000 sales in 3 months or something like that, or they look at 3 months if you like get 1,000 sales in every 3 months. So they're looking at a year's worth of time, and 2% is actually that seems somewhat reasonable. The problem though is, for instance, I mean, I was fine, but I was just like looking into this. Was okay. So let's say you're a newer seller, or you're just kind of a part-time seller, and you only sell a few items a month. You're not selling like crazy numbers, right? You're selling a few items a month. So by the end of the year, let's say you've sold 40 items, 50 items. Like that's how many items you've sold in a year. Maybe they're high value items. Like you're still doing pretty good part-time. You're selling items that make you $100 each time they sell. But you've only sold 50 items in the year. If you just get one defect, you're now at the 2%. So if let's say you sold 48 items in the year, you have one defect, you're now below standard. So I was like, that's crazy, because once you're below standard, they tell you when you're below standard, you can't use promoted listings anymore. You get lower in the algorithm. There's like a whole list of things that how it impacts you. You don't get the shipping benefits. You don't get, like, there's all kinds of ways your store gets kind of busted. And then if you're below standard on the next time they do it, the next time they run their thing, which is every month, I think on the 20th, or at least that's for my store, but every month when they run
it's true. It's the 20th.
The 20th. So every month when they run the kind of the evaluation, if you get below standard a second time, they knock your store down to basic. And it like, how do you get out of that? Because then it's like, I can't use promoted listings anymore. I'm fine, but I'm just saying, if this happened to somebody, you can't use promoted listings anymore, and you're lower in the algorithm. So how are you going to get enough sales? Because the game then becomes, I need to get enough sales to kind of overdo this defect. But now it's harder for me to get sales. Well, then I was like, they have in the fine print, and I was like, oh man, I'm glad they have it. The defect number of 2% has to come from 4 or more buyers. So if you just have one defect, you're fine. In fact, you could have 3 defects at 10 sales, and you'd still be fine because it didn't come from 4 buyers. So anyways, just went down the rabbit hole of like thinking like, man, that's really messed up. Like that could really mess up somebody's store getting put into that below standard category. But there is that protection there. So it prevents, because we talk about sometimes like vindictive buyers. Like what do you do when you have a vindictive buyer who, is coming after you? Well, even if a vindictive buyer comes after you, you end up getting a defect on something that you can't, for whatever reason, get off with eBay, which eBay is pretty good with working with you. That one person isn't going to be enough. Like even if they bought 3 things, you defected on 3 things from that one buyer, it would have to come from 3 other buyers in order for you, and you have to be above 2%. So both of those numbers together, I do feel is like a pretty fair like protection for you as the seller.
Yeah, and this is why I always say fight every defect, fight every negative feedback. Now, did you attempt at all to say, hey, I'm out of stock? Would you like something else or whatever? Do you want me to cancel this?
Yeah, they didn't respond. They never responded. And I actually would have been better off. Like if you do, I think the number was like 3. You can have like 3 resolved without without seller resolution.
Yeah.
You can have 3 of those or 2% defect. So when I was like, man, that one, like that messed me up. I'm like, oh no, my numbers are fine. But then I saw that 4 had to come from 4 buyers. But in some ways you might actually be better with resolved, depending on how many defects you have. You might be better off with a resolve without sellers, as opposed to just taking a defect for out of stock. So
I just think it's funny how eBay is so strict. Yeah. But yet they still, every day I get people that don't pay right away, and you can't even cancel them, but eBay can cancel you really quick if you have an out of stock. It's just the irony. All right. Hey, before we move on, if you haven't had a chance yet to keep up to date with your books, to make sure that you're staying profitable, to make sure that you're ready for taxes, to make sure you're tracking, your profit and loss, jump on over to My Reseller Genie and use our code Pure Hustle, all caps, and get 15% off the first month. My Reseller Genie, incredible tool. It'll import all your eBay listings from the previous year. If you haven't done your taxes yet, it'll also import all information so you're able to track, what your profits are. You can put it for each item. You can put how much you paid for it, and in the end, it'll give you a monthly report. it also tracks, your cost of shipping, your cost of fees, all that stuff. So if you haven't had a chance yet, jump on over to My Reseller Genie, use our code Pure Hustle, all caps, and get that 15% off the first month.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of clothing, so I got a couple of things I wanted to talk about here. I feel like this is an update episode for sure. So, I bought a bunch of clothes from my Latin Pickers. That's My Reseller Genie. But from Latin Pickers a few weeks ago. And I'm grateful. Like, they gave me a great deal. I probably bought, let's say it's 100 pieces of clothing. Okay, I don't think it was 100, but it was around there. And I forgot how much I don't like sourcing clothing. And what's interesting is that's where I started. Right. That's where, I was able to scale the business. It opened up a lot of doors for me. And I think for every new seller, clothing is a good place to start. But here's some things that I was reminded of. And you might go, Orlando, don't you sell Hawaiian shirts? Don't you sell, baseball jerseys and so on? I do. But I got to tell you, in this last year, I would say maybe it's been 10 to 20% of the items that I source. Now, it's still about 60 to 80% of the items that I sell, just because I've had some items for a while, but I really don't source clothing anymore. The main reason being is I don't go to thrift stores. I have not been to a thrift store in about, I want to say it's been 4 or 5 months since I've been to a thrift store. And, at garage sales, there's clothing sometimes, but not as much. Local deals, there's clothing sometimes, but not as much. And usually it's always hard goods that you end up sourcing when you go to garage sales and so on. And I don't know, it's one of those things, I forgot, you gotta make sure that it's steamed or whatever, right? So it's not super wrinkled. And some shirts I was like, I'm gonna take a picture of it wrinkled, who cares? And then you gotta measure it. Then if there's a flaw, you gotta make sure you point out the flaw. And then some items, like I picked up some jackets that didn't have their hoods. And so I had to make sure that I delineated that there was a hood missing. And the turnaround on clothing isn't that fast. Right? Because it's so saturated. On top of that, if you sell clothing, it's super competitive. So you have to take advantage of promoted listings unless you have something that's super unique. And so I'm grateful for the great pickup I had, but I'm not sure I will be sourcing clothing. Now, the beauty of sourcing clothing for a lot of people, and I think this is why a lot of the big resellers, in their mentoring courses and stuff like that, why they push clothing, because it's the easiest to teach people on, right? All you have to say is go to your local thrift store and you will always find clothing, right? Then it's all about learning the brands. You learn the brands, then you got the brands, right? And then after you got the brands, you got to learn to ship. But the shipping is so easy, right? It's a ground advantage package or it's a padded priority. If it's a bigger jacket, maybe it's a medium flat rate or large flat rate. And so I just want to give everybody a heads up. Like, I think one way to beat the competition, have the unfair advantage, is to get into a niche that's not clothing. Somebody in our comments, you talk about comments, somebody had said, I think in our last video, about how you're always going to have to do promoted listings if you do clothing. And you're going to be paying a lot in promoted listings because there are some sellers that they have promoted listings up to 20%, right? So they go to the bins, they get it super cheap, they list it, and they're willing to take that 20% cut, then that 10% cut that eBay takes, right? But they're selling so much volume, it doesn't matter to them. But if you're in a field, like, for example, I myself, I do a lot of vintage toys. I do a lot with... I sell like inflatables, right? Sometimes when I pick them up, I'm looking at 6 of them right now that I need to list. And those so good for good money. I don't have to do too much of promoted listings. I was looking at my recent solds just now, and I want to say probably only like 20% of them had the promoted rate. Why? Because a lot of them were toys. Some of them were car parts that I had picked up. I had picked up a bunch of hubcaps for Camaros and Chevelles. I also had a lot of, I don't know how to say it. It was just like golfing stuff, but it wasn't clothing. It was like, whatever it is. It's just different things that aren't as saturated. And so just think about that, if you're going like, Orlando, I feel like I'm working a lot. I'm hustling a lot. But this clothing game, it's insatiable. Like, you always have to be sourcing clothing. You always have to be taking pictures. You always have to, deal with the defects, deal with the returns, and so on. So there was that. But I'm grateful. I mean, I picked up some awesome pieces, and it is going to be profitable. It was a good reminder of why I don't pick up clothing too much anymore. Now, this was kind of funny. I was outsourcing at a garage sale, and I didn't put this on Instagram. This day, like I said, I've slowed down. I had garage sales, and I usually post an Instagram story, and then I ended up at a kid's birthday party, and I was like, I'm just gonna relax the rest of Saturday, and I didn't even post on Instagram. But I was crossing the street, and somebody had texted me. It's like, "Hey, Orlando, is that you at that garage sale?" And it was one of my friends from a while back, and I'm like, "Yeah, that was me." He's like, "Hey, I'm kind of bored for the next 4 hours. Can I just ride along with you?" And I'm very focused when it goes to garage sales, so I kind of was like, "Hey, man, like, don't be offended, but bro, like, when I go to garage sales, like, I'm moving, and I don't think it would be a good idea for you to come along." And then he's like, come on, you can't take me along. And I was like, all right, here's the address of the next garage sale. So we went to the next garage sale, and you forget about how weird you are when you're a reseller, because I'm at this garage sale, and it was one of those beautiful estate sales it was a garage sale, but it was an estate sale. Everything was outside, but none of it had prices on it, right? So you're just like digging, and the first thing I picked up was like vintage dental floss that was sealed. And he looked at me, he's like, "Dude, you're picking that up?" I'm like, "Yeah, these go for like 30 or 40 bucks. He's like, "What? Who buys that?" And in my head, I'm like, that's right. Like, to the normal person, this is weird. Like, who's gonna buy dental floss, right? And then and it got even weirder when, like, the guy, he had a bunch of cross stitch kits. And I asked the guy, how much? And he's like, I could do 5. And I'm like, how about we do 3 for everything? He's like, sold. And then I picked up another item, and I'm like, how about 2? And he's like, sure, 2. And then he looked at me, he's like, what? He's like, why don't you just pay the $5? And I'm like, man, because every dollar counts. He's like, you know what? Why don't you negotiate? I want to get this sewing kit for my mom here. So I grabbed the sewing kit. I went over and I told the guy $3. And he's like, all right, I'll do $3. Because the guy was just, I at that time, I wasn't waiting for the first number, because the guy just didn't care. He just wanted everything gone. And it's so funny. I went back to him. He's like, all right, so how much did you pay? I'm like, $3. And he goes, what? My mom said she was okay with $10. And I'm like, wow, like, realize this. Like, it's been so long since I've been out with normal people, like sourcing garage sales.
Is that what we call them now? Normal people? Normies?
I guess, well, normies. It just was interesting, because then we were driving back, and he goes, hey man, what's your Venmo? I owe you $3. I'm like, dude, forget about it. $3, just, I don't care, it's fine. He's like, nah man, I saw you like trying to haggle for like $1 or $2. And
every dollar counts.
I guess, yeah. So, but then I guess to him, like, I must be like uber broke, like like in a really bad place. And I said, nah. I texted him back. I'm like, LOL. No, this is just business. This is just how things go at garage sales. And I go, wow, like, this is. I remember, because years ago when I observed other people doing this, I thought it was weird, because I would go to garage sales with people that had been going for a while, and they sold on eBay, and I remember they would be haggling, and I'm like, what? Like, that's a good deal already. And I remember my buddy Mike would be like, Orlando, why not? If they want to sell it to you, they're going to sell it to you at that price. And I was like, okay. So anyways, it was an interesting one. And it ended up working out. I always say, share that you're a reseller with everybody. So he contacts me. He's like, hey, my parents are trying to get rid of a bunch of stuff. Why don't you come by our garage? And I was like, all right, I came by, and I ended up picking up 2 waffle makers, which will sell for anywhere from 50 to 100 a piece. I ended up picking one of those steamers that are the really big steamers that like you press things with. So I sold that for 100 to 200. And so, yeah, it panned out to share that I was a reseller. It panned out to have him coming along on the garage sale. He ended up scoring some stuff. I scored some stuff, and I just ended up realizing what interesting creatures we are as resellers. So that was my random story.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, we definitely look at the world a little differently. That's for sure. We just have different experiences. I mean, I had my brother-in-law over, and he's like really good with mechanic stuff and working on air conditioners and stuff, and like listening to him talk, and he's like helping me do things. I'm like, that's too much, man. He's like, no, this is normal. And like he's like, so yeah, it's like everybody has their thing, and yeah, when you're not around, when you're around resellers so much, you forget that other people like they don't get it. They don't see the way we see things. They don't even speak a lot of times the way we speak when it comes to items and things. So yeah, it's really interesting. So my random story, this one's pretty short, but it just kind of got me thinking. So I've got the next school year coming up here. So I went to eBay to buy some of my books. Like you mentioned, Orlando, from Latin Pickers, is that they do better on eBay than even Amazon for selling used books. And I find it a lot easier to buy used books on eBay than on Amazon. Because you kind of have to, you pull up a book and then you got to search through like, okay, are there other offerings of this book and at what's the price and which ones are, whereas on eBay, it's a little bit easier. You look and the book at that price, that's what you're getting. And there's a lot of sellers, like the one seller that I bought from, they may be one of the biggest booksellers on eBay. Maybe they're not, I don't know. I know they've got like several million listings of books.
Wow.
They do, like, and a lot of big sellers do the same kind of thing. It's like buy 3, get 1 free.
Okay.
So it's really easy for me. I could buy 3 books for about $4 a piece, and then I get the 4th book for free. So 4 books for $12, not a bad deal. I mean, of course, again, as a reseller, you're out at garage sales. We find them all the time for 50 cents to $1. So it's hard paying $4 for, but I'm getting the ones I want. I don't have to hunt for them, so I don't mind paying up. Well, when I get them, I see like this like envelope inside of the book package that's like, it looked like, sometimes you buy things on Amazon and they like offer you like, if you leave us a review, we'll give you this or stuff That's kind of what it looked like.
Which is outside of terms of service for Amazon, but go ahead.
Yeah, I understand. But so it's like a packet of like 3 different like credit card sized or like little pamphlet sized coupons for various things. Like 2 of them were for like food things, like the Hello Fresh and stuff like that. And it's like, please accept this offer from our sponsors or from our partners. And I'm thinking, this is genius.
Yep.
This is genius. Like, and I'm sure I've noticed this before, but it never really clicked to me what people were doing, because these people are selling books at a decent profit. Like, we know that they're buying these books by the Gaylords.
Should we have shared this on air? You should have told me. Like, I'm thinking like this is something we can get into ourselves.
Right. Well, and that's why I bring it up. Now, again, I think it takes a certain kind of store, right? Because you got to be big enough, and you need to be able to show, hey, HelloFresh, you send me coupons, I'll send them to people in the mail. Like, basically you're paying me to get your coupons out to people. And they're going to want to know, okay, well, how many packages do you sell a year? And if you're like, well, I sell, 1,000, it might not be worth it to them. But if you're like a company like them, it's like, we sell 30,000 a year. Like, okay, then it might be a little bit more worth it. So yeah, I wonder what that cutoff point is, because then you're looking for basically advertisers to pay you per package. So if you're getting paid, let's say 50 cents per package you send out, that cuts into your shipping, like, or cuts down your shipping. Or maybe you get more, like maybe you're able to send out like coupons. And because it's genius, because then those people aren't having to send them out. It's getting sent to people. I don't know. I just thought it was kind of a cool
but think
idea.
About it. Couldn't we send like our Skull Shaver code? Couldn't we send like American Bubble Boy? Like, it's the same thing.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean, it's not as broad a field like HelloFresh, which is food, something that everybody eats, right? But I mean, I don't think it's against terms. Let us know in the comments.
Maybe we could just send like a Pure Hustle podcast. Like, come watch our show. You can watch our show and see this thing that you paid $400 for. I'll tell the story that I sold it. I picked it up for $2 at a garage sale.
There you go. Because I've been contemplating like one of our potential affiliates eventually, like Good Rancher or like, which they sell steaks to people and stuff like that. And so I'm thinking like maybe we could do that. Just send out. Great idea, Mike. Great idea.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, before we move on to our reseller topics, if you haven't had a chance to follow us on social media, we are Pures of Podcast on all social media, including Threads now. And if you hadn't had a chance, we are Pures of Cast on Twitter also. You could always leave us an email at puresofpodcast@gmail.com. That's puresofpodcast@gmail.com. Or leave us a phone call. If you have any questions or hustle of the week you want to share, you can always give us a call at 619-738-1170. That's 619-738-1170. If you're listening to the podcast for the first time and you just want to take a look at whatever we look like, or just want to check us out on YouTube, you can jump on over, hit that subscribe, smash that like button, and hit that bell notification so you're not missing our Monday minisodes or any other episodes we drop. And as always, grateful to everybody for the iTunes reviews. Greatly helps us, keeps us as the #1 reselling podcast out there. So thank you. And last of all, if you haven't had a chance and you want to support the podcast, you can go to patreon.com/puresofpodcast. And for $5.55 a month, you could, help us keep the lights on, get equipment that we need. I'm looking at maybe, I don't know, maybe we need to, right now, as a result of everybody, what they gave, like our sound quality, I think is actually better than when we were in studio. Like if you're listening to the podcast, I've even listened to it myself, which I know it's weird listening to your own podcast, but I feel like I'm in the room with you. Like it's just, I don't know. And it's thanks to everyone here who allowed us to get this equipment that I don't know what to call it, but Mike knows what it is, and it helps us create that great sound. So jump on over patreon.com/puresofpodcast, or go to the link below. And also with the bonus that comes with that, you get to jump on the Discord, the Pures of Podcast community, which has all kinds of sellers from Amazon FBA, Merchant Fulfilled, to Mercari, to Poshmark, to eBay sellers, to vintage clothing sellers, to retail arbitrage, all kinds of people just talking shop, encouraging one another, and just tons of knowledge in the Discord. So come on over.
Yeah.
All right, we got some things to talk about.
All right. We are going to be talking about things related to reselling, like a UPS strike, USPS ground advantage, and eBay Q2 earnings report. All of this and more on Reseller News.
All right. So all I wanted to say is that the UPS strike isn't happening, as far as I know. A deal's been reached and it's over. And the reason we didn't talk about this on the podcast was because I just never saw it happening. I don't know where Mike landed on this, but there's always like this threat of strikes, and UPS, realizes they need to keep their items moving. And at the same time, people that work at UPS know that they need to keep getting paid. And so, in the end, they came to reasonable terms, and everything was sorted out and figured out. And remember, I also didn't bring it up that if, let's say UPS didn't work out, there's always FedEx, there's the post office, there's other avenues to ship the items from. Now, and talking about shipping, have you been shipping stuff out like USPS Ground Advantage lately?
Not tons of things. A lot of my stuff has gone other ways, but a few things.
I will say I really like it. I'm glad the switch happened. The reason I like it is sometimes, here's what happened. So initially, before we had it, if you ship something that was worth more than $50, it was only insured, up to $100 if it was priority. And that only happened on eBay if you were like a top rated seller. There always had to be something added to it. Now, and I know a lot of people are going to say, well, you'll never get your money back from USPS insurance. And I think there's valid arguments to be made about that. But with USPS Ground Advantage, you can ship anything and it's all insured for up to $100. So I've had some items, that somebody paid over $50. And usually if somebody pays over $50 for something, I'll always ship a priority just so it gets there faster, just so I get the insurance. Well, now I can ship USPS Ground Advantage and I have the insurance. So it's been kind of nice to have that option, not having to deal with it. And in the reality, priority has slowed down where sometimes like I've said before in previous podcasts, if you're a reseller who ships daily, or at least you ship by next day business, your items are always going to get on time. It's never going to be a major issue. And so, yeah, I just, want to throw out there USPS Ground Advantage. Take a look. The major issue I've seen people having is they haven't updated their business policies. And so if you don't know what I mean, just go to my eBay on your account, go to my eBay, and then go to account, and then go to your policies, then go to shipping policies. And if you haven't created any, you should create some. And if you have created some that are first class, just switch them over to USPS Ground Advantage. If you still feel lost, there's a few YouTube videos that people have created out there how to do it. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
So it's been good. Now, I'm always leery about talking about eBay earnings reports, because let me just ask you, Mike, what do you think this earnings report is going to tell us?
I don't know. I haven't dug into it, but I have a feeling it's going to be, hey, look, we're successfully making lots of money. Our numbers are great. Also, we've had fewer items sell on our site, but our bottom line is still just as high or higher.
Now, if you want to, while I'm talking, I think you may be able to pull this up on the video. If you just, you already pulled it up. Look at you.
Yeah.
You're
Just
on
tell me what page you want.
All right. So let's go first to the graph that talks about the gross merchandise value. Oh, before we go gross merchandise value, they talked about, their highlights, right? So the focus their categories. So yeah, they improved eBay Motors. They're now, doing more authenticity, and that's great. That's good. So scroll a little bit more. But the one that I want to look at is, let's look at the first one here. So one of their highlights was, and again, I love eBay, don't get me wrong, but I think they have a major contradiction in the way they want us to sell and what they're doing. So they talk about magical listing by AI. So you were just on it, Mike. And so it was kind of interesting. So they actually show the picture of what an AI listing looks like and how it's like a huge, 5-sentence paragraph, which is not what eBay wants. Like eBay wants you to keep it short, 1 or 2 lines. And this, especially when you list items and, you go to the thing where it's like you want to modify the template and it's like, are you sure you want to do this? Generally buyers like, shorter descriptions or something like that. It says something like that. And it was interesting because they took some stats and they said 30% of users tried it. So which that to me tells me a lot of sellers are kind of like, I don't know. And plus the fact that it's only mobile. Okay. 90% acceptance rate of AI generated descriptions. I thought that was pretty interesting. 90%, that's pretty high. And then 80% customer satisfaction. So I wonder, was a survey sent out? Like, how do you feel about these AI descriptions?
Yeah. My thought, I don't know how they're surveying that, but my thought would be that maybe just to give the benefit of the doubt. So eBay is saying that they don't want long descriptions. They want the shorter descriptions, but maybe that was when it was non-AI generated. And that if the average person who wants to put 10 paragraphs on their items and put all the HTML flashy pictures and stuff, maybe they just weren't doing it right. There's a difference between somebody standing up and giving a 5-minute speech if they know what they're talking about and it's somebody you want to listen to, versus somebody standing up and giving a 5-minute speech and you're just like, please get off the stage, right? So maybe to them it's like, hey, this longer thing, if it's AI generated, customers are actually have a decent response to it, versus if it's just the average person that's long-winded writing a long thing that isn't received as well. So it could be that they're like, hey, the AI response isn't actually as bad as most people who write a lot. And then the other thing is, we could say eBay doesn't want that, but if the reality is that they're pushing this new feature, they might actually be promoting people who are doing it. Your items might be higher in the search result if you're using AI listings. So it's tough to say.
That is. Or it's one of those things, where you ever bought something and you shouldn't have bought it, but since you paid for it, you're going to use it. Maybe it's that kind of scenario. I don't know. All right, let's get to your predictions, which obviously you're spot on, my friend. And I don't think it takes, Mike, you're a genius, but I don't think it takes a genius to realize that. So if you go down a little bit, there's a bar graph. And okay, so GMV. Okay, so let's a lot of people always are like, well, you guys, you're comparing it to 2020. No, I'm not even comparing to 2020. Okay, so let's just compare. Let's look at Q1 numbers first. Okay, So GMV, if you're new, GMV is gross merchandise value. That is how much eBay makes off of sales of items. Okay. And it's in the billions. So Q1 of 2022, they made 19.4 billion. Q1 of 2023, they made 18.4 billion. So it's $1 billion less on GMV. Now go to Q2. So Q2, the discrepancy wasn't that bad, but there's still a major discrepancy. So Q2 2022, 18.5 billion. Q2 2023, 18.2 billion. So what does that tell you? Well, there's a lot less buyers. And so overall, I think they said there was a drop in 4% of the amount of buyers that they had on the eBay platform. So that tells me a couple things. That tells me, obviously, eBay has lost more of the marketplace, right? There's more people that are, going to other platforms and buying. That also tells me that, people aren't buying as much, right? People aren't going on there.
And if you look, like going back to that Q2 thing, it's broken up into international versus US. Going to Q2 of 2022 versus Q2 of 2023, the entire loss pretty much comes from the US market. So it's like, we are doing fine. Like I sell things internationally, but I'm certain that it's international sellers selling internationally that are making up a vast majority of international sales.
Oh yeah.
Like I would say 85%, 90% of my sales are coming US. So if the loss is coming, if that $300 million loss is coming straight out of the US side, so we went from 9% or 9.9 billion to 8.7 billion. That's my market, right? Like I'd be happier if part of that was coming out of the international, but yeah, that's rough.
And so, for example, they at the end of June, it's somewhere in the report, end of June in 2022, they had 138 million active buyers, and now they're down to 132 million. So that has changed. But eBay did well in the stock market. Yes, but they still did well because they beat projected estimates of revenue. And where did that revenue come from? Well, no, go down even more. Go down.
Hold on, before we go down though, look at this though. They made, so Q2, we know they made more money in Q2 last year than they made in Q2 this year.
Yeah.
Yet their revenue this year was higher than their revenue in Q2 of last year. So they made more money this year, even though they didn't sell as much stuff on the platform.
Correct. And that's because of, if we go to the next bar graph here, is their advertising revenue. This is promoted listings. Look at these numbers. God. So if you're listening to the podcast, well, let me break down these numbers. Okay. So imagine in your head a bar graph that is constantly going up. Okay. There's no up and down. It's just up and up and up and up. Okay. So Q1 of 2022, eBay made 267 million off of advertising. Okay. Q1 of 2023, they made 317 million. Okay. Now let's look at Q2. Okay. Q2 last year, same time, 275 million. This time around, Q2 2023, 367 million.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. It's the biggest jump. Like that's a huge jump.
That just tells me it's not going away anytime soon. It's what's keeping eBay above water. It's what's keeping, their shareholders happy. And it's just the reality we're gonna have to live in. Like that's whoever came up with that idea probably got a nice bonus. That's all I'll say. Like, it's helping the company.
Crazy. All right. Do we have any more on this that you wanted to go over? Or is that good?
That's pretty much it. But I want to remind people, like all the time I get people that go like, I don't do anything promoted. I'm not, we should all stand up against eBay. And I'm like, no, like it's just not it's not worth it to you. Because the reality is on eBay, only 20% of eBay sales are secondary goods, right? And most of the people that listen to our podcast, they're not selling new items, right? They're selling secondary goods. And so you may say, well, I'm not going to let eBay take my money. That may cost you money in the long run. And I hated it. I mean, am I a fan that I'm on dynamic ad rates? No, I'm not, because some items like eBay got their 10% cut, and then eBay got their other 8% cut, and then eBay got their cut on their on the taxes that I had nothing to do with. Then eBay got their cut on the shipping. Then then I can go on and on and on. But I will still say eBay is the best platform to sell secondary goods. They have the largest amount of buyers. They have the best seller protections. They have the best international shipping program. I do think Pirate Ship, Simple Export, is a major competitor to eBay's international shipping. Somebody had commented on our social media last week how they don't do any eBay international. They do it all through Pirate Ship, and they're able to reach more countries because, when you do eBay international, you can only do the country that's listed, where if you do Simple Export, there's a lot more countries open to you when you do Pirate Ship. So that's just something to consider. But yeah, nothing surprising, Mike. Nothing surprising, which makes me kind of sad. So, and I think that's been true for like a decade. I can't remember when this was, but somebody had been discussing how eBay has lost like GMV every single year except maybe 2020, but outside of that, it's been kind of rough. So, all right. So, hey, I just wanted to share something real quick. International shipping, it's not like a reseller topic, but just a tip for people out there. Sometimes you'll get an international buyer, and eBay hasn't figured this out yet, that wants to buy multiple items from your store. Sometimes they'll let them put everything in a cart. Sometimes it won't. I don't know what the difference is, but if anybody contacts you and says, hey, I want to buy multiple items and I want to combine shipping or whatever, the best thing to do is just create a new listing and just put just screenshot all the pictures of the items that they want, make a one listing and just sell it that way. It makes the shipping easier. It brings costs down for the buyer, and it allows you to close that sale for more money. And I've had to do that a few times. I'm not sure why eBay doesn't have that resolved, but it's allowed me to, make decent sales. Instead of selling one item, I sold 2 or 3 or 5, whatever it is. So just a quick tip. Did that make sense what I just shared?
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. It's extra work for you. And then, you want to make sure that when you do something like that, that you're taking the item down before you list the new group, because you could run into issue where you list 10 items together as one listing, someone buys it, and then when they're in the process of paying for it, someone happens to buy one of those other 10 items.
So no, I've had that happen where there was a buckle that was part of a lot, and I forgot to pull that buckle. And I looked. You know how it goes. You spend like 30 minutes and you're like, I can't find this item. Luckily, with eBay, you can go back 2 years and you can type in a name. And the problem is it doesn't always work when you're searching stuff. So that's another whole conversation. So, anyways, I'm going to be kind. All right. So, yeah, that's all we got for reseller topics. Nothing crazy happening. It's we've talked about AI before, so I got nothing new on AI, but I would say keep looking out for AI. I had posted on social media about how AI is working at thrift stores to like sort out items and price them. And it created this huge discussion on social media. And actually the person that is responsible for the software commented on the post. The discussion was basically like, in 2 or 3 years, AI is going to pretty much dominate the thrift store space. But we'll leave that for another podcast. So, all right. That is our reseller topics for today.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what to look for.
All right. Bolo is an item that you want to be on the lookout for while you are out reselling. So you're out thrifting, you're at garage sales, you're doing some searching on eBay. Sometimes we have people ask, what is Bolo? So my Bolo is something we've kind of talked about. You talked about baseball bats being a Bolo in the past. Mm-hmm. And when I was at the bins, I found some, I thought they're baseball bats. I looked them up. They're softball bats. So I'm just extending your Bolo that baseball or softball bats do really well. So again, it was pay by the pound at the salvation or at the Goodwill bins, And so I picked up two of them. That one of them I think is going to sell for $100. Another one's going to sell for like $65, $70. And I had a whole bunch of other stuff in my cart, and I paid $15 total getting out of there. So it's definitely kind of a hustle too. Hustle of the week in that sense, picking up those two bats for so cheap. But yeah, softball bats can do really well. I don't know a ton about baseball or softball brands or styles, but these were carbon bats, which I think go a little bit more. But it's one of those things where it's like, now that I'm going to be taking the time to list these, checking out the model numbers, all of that, I'm going to spend a little bit of time kind of looking into which ones of these types of bats sell better or worse. And so I always do that whenever I pick something up, and I suggest doing that as well. Is kind of just search the sold comps for like which ones have sold for the highest, or their different models, brands, and then that's now added into your brain. But I knew bats were a bolo, but finding these softball bats, I was like, holy cow, man, there's some money here.
Yeah, and they're easy to ship. UPS ground is the way to go, and it's really easy. All you have to do is you bubble wrap it, then grab a piece of cardboard and you just like roll it up with the bat, and then you just make sure you tighten, because it's wrapped, you just tighten the edges and it's all good and you're good to go. Like, I love, if I could source baseball bats every garage sale weekend, I would love it, because they do move pretty quick too. So it's year round. That's the beauty of travel ball. People always need bats. So there you have it. So my bolo is we always think about Nintendo. We think of like Sega Dreamcast. We think about Game Boy. But PlayStation 1 games are making a comeback. I've sold so many of them in the last few months. And it's crazy because I don't think a lot of people, I mean, obviously now more people are going to be looking at them. But, I went to a garage sale a few weeks ago and I paid $10 for like a stack. And I didn't think anything of it. I thought maybe I could sell each of these for 20. There was one that I sold for like $70. No, 75. There's another one I sold for 35. There's another one I sold for 20. And these are PlayStation 1, and they're quick sellers. Like Twisted Metal was one of them. I picked up like 4 of them in old school. Remember those CD cases they could zip up? And I sold all 4 of them like within a day, and I made like a quick $30. And I paid $5 for the CD case, and I had more games in there. So keep an eye out for PlayStation 1. I remember I used to pass over PlayStation 1 all the time, but now you never know. And so I would say even the ones that sell for like $14 or $20, I think it's worth picking up because they flip quick, right? You'll make your money fast and you move forward, and it helps trigger the algorithm. So those are the bolos for this week. Hey, before we move on, if you haven't had a chance yet to get that bubble wrap, we had mentioned the American Bubble Boy before, I think. Go on over to American Bubble Boy via our link. And no discounts offered on the bubble wrap. And the reason being is because it's such a great price already. And it's free shipping. It is next day if it's in your area, or 2-day. You can even do local pickup. And there's also tape there is a discount for 5% off. If you put our code Pure Hustle, you get 5% off my go-to tape, which I will tell you, I am buying some more. I used to always buy eBay tape with my shipping coupon, but eBay tape is trash. I just can't stand eBay tape. And once I went to my go-to tape that American Bubble Boy exclusively sells, I don't think I'm going to go back to eBay tape. I'm instead going to use that money to buy maybe poly mailers or something like that. Because, the other day I had posted, I don't know if you saw the post where I had a duck decoy I had to ship out. Oh, you know which one sold? Remember that big goose on the podcast?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it sold.
How much did it sell for?
I should wait for Hustle of the Week. That was gonna be Hustle of the Week next
week.
Sure.
Yeah, let's say that's a good little teaser. Make sure you check out next week's episode.
Yeah, but it sold, and I had to make sure that everything was in place, because if the neck snaps off, because it was a bigger neck, and so I had to tape. But man, the amount of tape that I had to use for eBay tape, and eBay tape is just flimsy. If there's any kind of wind, it'll instantly move it and it'll stick to the tape next to it. It's just terrible. My go-to tape doesn't do that. So anyways, go to American Bubble Boy, get my go-to tape, use our code Pure Hustle for the tape, or just buy some bubble wrap. So check out the link below. All right, what are you looking forward to here, Mike?
I'm looking forward to getting to honestly going to the bins a few more times, kind of really figuring it out. It's hard because I've got to think weight now instead of just like look at an item, put it in, and know how much my cart costs. Because those are always running through my mind. How much I'm paying, how much thing I'm going to make. But the price is so cheap unless an item's really heavy. So it'll be weird to be picking something up and be like, this might be too heavy versus what I'm going to make off of it. But I'm excited. I'm excited to get to the bins a few more times, and it's on my way home from work, and my job will be starting. My new teaching position will be starting here pretty soon. So it might end up being like a twice a week thing or something where I just stop for a half hour and just dig through some bins real quick. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. What about you? What are you looking forward to?
So I'm still, I don't know. Somebody had said at one point in one of the comments, like, no more doom and gloom about Q4. And to me, it's whether there is or not, I can't stop what I'm doing, right? I do this full time, so I need to prep. So I'm going to keep listening like crazy. In August, I'm going to start doing Whatnot auctions once a week. And just because, I haven't done it in a while, and I kind of, you take a break and you want to go back to it. So I'm going to try it out. If I do one and it's just not worth my time, I won't go back to it. But I thought I'd try it out. I have a lot of vintage hats I've picked up over the last few weeks. And I know there's people that are looking for vintage hats. So check us out. We also have that Whatnot code. Not the code, but you get $15 credit. You go to the link below. But I want to do a little bit of Whatnot auctions here. And so we'll see how that goes. I shared that idea with you because it's something I've been contemplating. If I can find a resource where I can get just cheap inventory that I could make good money on, like at least once a week, I may just do a Whatnot. Just for, it has to be worth it. That's the thing. It just has to be worth it. Up until this point, Whatnot has not been worth it. I don't want to spend more than 4 hours a week on Whatnot. I'm willing to spend the 1 hour or two sourcing. I'm willing to spend a 1 hour doing the auction. I'm willing to spend an hour shipping. But any more than that, I'd rather devote to eBay, sourcing, listing, shipping, because it's a lot more profitable on eBay. So we'll see what happens. So check us out. Stay tuned to our Whatnot. I think it's still alive. When's the last time you looked at our Whatnot? It's been a long time. I don't even know how many items we sold on there. I don't think we've hit the 1,000 mark yet. So maybe we will now. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to. That I'm looking forward to just the second round of garage sale season starting soon, but it's not here. It's really hot here in California, and I know you're dying right now. Okay, but it's a terrible 85 right now of dry heat, but it's a big deal in California. So I'm hoping that things cool down so I can go to garage sales, because garage sales have been kind of lately. So we'll see what happens. So, hey, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully this podcast helped you out a lot. Appreciate you guys that listen to the podcast. Appreciate everyone that watches. Just thank you for all your support. And with that being said, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling. Lates.
Peace.